How did these girls go from this to this?
What do I do?
Buckle up, everyone, because today we are diving into the latest season of Euphoria, and it's dramatic AF. So, Euphoria is basically heavily based on an Israeli series of the same name, and the show threw us headfirst into the turbulent lives of Rue Bennett and her classmates. But forget everything you know about the high school drama, because this season has truly pumped up the speed. We fast forward 5 whole years. The hallway lockers and classroom desks of East Highland High are long gone. The main characters we knew have now stepped into the real world. Now, I've already covered the past 2 seasons of Euphoria in a previous video, which if your memory is a little fuzzy on what has happened so far, go and check that one out first. Alright, now let's get into it. In episode 1, Rue Bennett is back where she usually finds herself. Stuck in a terrible situation. We find her down in Mexico, desperately trying to rev her Jeep out of a thick patch of mud. Locals help push Rue's Jeep free, and she makes a frantic break for the American border with a totally not suspicious duffel bag. Naturally, things go sideways, almost immediately. Her Jeep snags onto a metal fence right at the border wall, rocking back and forth like a tragic seesaw. The show's classic way of telling us that no matter how hard Rue tries to move forward, she's stuck in the exact same cycle. She then abandons the Jeep, hoists the heavy bag, and sets off on foot in the brutal desert heat. During the trek, Rue reflects that absolutely nothing good has happened since high school ended. She finds temporary shelter with a deeply religious homeschooled Christian family in Texas. Watching their simple internet-free life, she concludes they're the happiest people she's ever met. And considering Rue's history, that quiet peace genuinely looks like utopia. But all good things must come to an end. If you remember, in Season 2, Rue's mom discarded a massive drug stash belonging to a dealer named Laurie, who then came back to get all of the money that she's owed. All of it.
Means that you actually owe me $43,887,000.
$43 million.
This ends up leaving Rue deep in debt, and that's why, at the start of this episode, she was in Mexico risking her life as a drug mule. We find out Rue has actually been living under Laurie's roof, and the duffel bag she dragged across the desert was packed with fentanyl, smuggled by Rue and her friend Faye by literally swallowing baggies of the drugs and puking them out later. Yikes. The show then checks in on the other East Highland survivors, starting with Lexi Howard, who doesn't exactly look like she belongs in Euphoria anymore. Her personal life isn't going too great, though. Her ex-boyfriend Fezco is serving a 30-year prison sentence following the SWAT raid on his apartment at the end of last season. To cope, Lexi has thrown herself into her career, now working in Hollywood as an assistant to a powerful TV showrunner named Patty Lance. She has found peace in a writer's room full of Gen Z colleagues who clock it every time Patty makes a dramatic speech about television changing the world. Lexi seems truly happy and fulfilled compared to her sister's dumpster fire, which you'll get to know here in a moment. Cassie Howard's introduction is on all fours, wearing a dog costume, lingerie, fake ears, a tail, and a leash, barking and drinking from a bowl while her housekeeper films it for TikTok. She's living in a massive mansion with fiancé Nate Jacobs, who arrives in a Tesla Cybertruck, walks in to dog Cassie, and immediately berates her for posting such videos. Over dinner, Cassie asks Nate to pay for $50,000 flower arrangements for their upcoming wedding day. Nate points out that this is an insane amount of money to spend on flowers. But Cassie doesn't budge. She tells Nate that she can earn that money herself through OnlyFans if he doesn't pay up. She also points out that if Nate can't afford the flowers, maybe he can't afford the wedding either, and they should just call it off. Yeesh, their relationship dynamic has certainly changed. Nate, on the other hand, has his own headaches. He's taken over his father's real estate empire and is pitching end-of-life care facilities to skeptical investors, with the selling point that a baby boomer dies every 15 seconds. Unsurprisingly, investors aren't rushing to hand over their money. We then check in with Maddie Perez. She's living in a cramped, dimly lit Hollywood apartment and working as an assistant to a talent manager. She meets Lexi and drops a bombshell. Jules Vaughn has been away at art school, and is secretly also a sugar baby. Damn. When Rue hears this, she's deeply hurt. But Rue has other life or death problems to deal with. Rue meets up with Ali, who advises her to try to turn her life around by turning to God. He says she just needs something else, something bigger than herself to believe in. Rue scoffs at this, mentioning that she's literally gay and that according to the Bible, she should be stoned to death. Ali convinces her by saying that the Bible was just against sodomy and not lesbians as a whole. Great logic, yeah. Rue then decides it's worth a shot. She's desperate for a new perspective. After that, we see Laurie sending Rue on a drug delivery to a party at a luxury mansion, where she meets Alamo, an incredibly dangerous man, flaunting heavy gold rings, who owns everyone and everything in his house. Basically, he owns a strip club empire and is very rich. Desperate to escape Laurie's grip, Rue begs Alamo for a permanent job. That, and also being surrounded by hot girls for work, is right up Rue's alley. However, the night turns horrific when one of the pills she just delivered causes a stripper named Tish to overdose. And the vibe suddenly shifts from job interview to a total nightmare. Angered, Alamo accuses Rue of being sent by Laurie to disrupt his business. Rue says she just delivers the drugs and that she would never do this since she genuinely wants to work for him. In a display of power, Alamo places an apple on Rue's head, takes 10 steps back, aims a gold revolver at her face, and pulls the trigger. The bullet shatters the apple. A trembling Rue drops to her knees and celebrates narrowly surviving another day in the Euphoria universe. The next episode begins with a flashback to Maddie's early days in Los Angeles. During an interview with this powerful talent manager called Miss Penzler, Maddie confidently sells herself by saying,
"I'm not a victim, I won't be an HR nightmare, and I believe in capitalism."
Well, that's refreshing.
Penzler is impressed and hires her immediately. Maddie then rises through the agency until the COVID shutdown disrupts the entertainment industry. The world might have stopped during COVID, but Maddie didn't. Seeing an opportunity, Maddie begins managing Caitlin, a bubbly, aspiring influencer. She helps grow Caitlin's brand through glamorous, risque shoots and even foot content that eventually turns Caitlin into the talk of the town. But everything falls apart when Caitlin starts dating Dylan Reed, a major TV star represented by Miss Penzler's agency. Penzler goes ballistic, warning Maddie that Dylan, whose career is bound to last 40 years, cannot be risked by being associated with an adult content influencer. Because of her job at the agency, Maddie drops Caitlin under pressure from Penzler. Maddie needs a secure job in order to send money to her mother as well. Still, it's a decision that haunts her a year later when Caitlin casual posts that she made $700,000 in a single month. So basically, if Maddie would have just trusted her gut, she wouldn't still be stuck fetching people's coffee. Damn. In the present, Rue officially starts working for Alamo after he pays off her debt to Laurie. Laurie, by the way, gets extremely pissed and calls Alamo all kinds of names, including a pig. Rue's first assignment is grim, helping clean up evidence connected to Tish's fatal overdose. Alamo explains that the drug that Tish took was laced with fentanyl residue, so they weren't the usual ecstasy pills. And yeah, that is what caused the overdose. Alamo then promotes Rue to floor manager at his strip club, the Silver Slipper. Veteran manager Big Eddie gives her strict rules about keeping customers and dancers under control while avoiding drugs, alcohol, and hookups on the job. Surprisingly, Rue thrives in the chaotic environment because it distracts her from thinking about Jules. Still, she quickly breaks the rules by sleeping with a dancer named Angel, while privately admitting she still misses her ex. After that, we find out that Tish was actually Angel's best friend, and so she becomes increasingly unstable while trying to contact Tish. Angel's been told that Tish ran away with a man, but Angel knows that's not something Tish would do. So Rue finally tells her the truth. Tish is dead. She overdosed. Hearing this, Angel completely falls apart, and Alamo orders Rue to get her into rehab or risk losing her position. He offers to pay for treatment and hints at further promotions if Rue handles it properly. Rue convinces Angel to go by presenting rehab as a temporary escape, then drops her at a questionable facility called Hope Springs. Later, Rue confesses to Bishop, one of Alamo's henchmen, that she is worried she may have sent Angel somewhere unsafe. Elsewhere, Cassie connects with Maddie over the lunch at the Peninsula Hotel. Yeah, she texted Maddie and told her that she wanted to fix things, but it isn't just because she misses her old best friend, of course. She knows Maddie is working with a talent agency, and who better to help manage her OnlyFans account. She tearfully apologizes for pursuing Nate and insists their relationship was based on real love. Maddie immediately sees through the performance but forgives her anyway. After several drinks, Cassie reveals her true reason for the meeting. She wants Maddie to manage her social media career. Maddie bluntly criticizes Cassie's recent viral content as desperate and embarrassing, but eventually agrees to help her, and Cassie reacts with overwhelming excitement. Later, Cal, Nate's father, visits him after hearing about Cassie's OnlyFans through his therapy group. Their conversation quickly becomes uncomfortable as Cal once again insists that sleeping with men does not make him gay, only
a hedonist.
Nate dismisses the discussion, asking Cal to leave. Meanwhile, Nate's life continues to spiral. His investor pitch for his elderly care setup collapses after investors discover Cassie's OnlyFans account, particularly the content of her dressing up as a baby, which is so weird and wrong and weird. And at the same time, loan shark Naz pressures Nate over a $550,000 debt. Desperate to regain some sense of control, Nate forces Cassie to delete the account, telling her that he will pay for the flowers, and she agrees. Meanwhile, Alamo decides to take revenge on Laurie for calling him a pig. His crew secretly releases a live pig into Laurie's mansion overnight. The animal destroys their furniture and the carpets, while Laurie's staff desperately chases it through its own poop through the house. Laurie then eventually finds a note reading, "Remember the Alamo?" The episode then ends with Rue visiting Jules at her luxurious penthouse paid for by her wealthy married sugar daddy. Their reunion is awkward and emotionally heavy. Rue claims that she is California sober, basically meaning she drinks and smokes weed sometimes, just not enough to be turned into a wreck. She also tried to hint that restarting their relationship, but Jules gently rejects the idea because she has a boyfriend. When Rue points out that her boyfriend is just a married sugar daddy, Jules defends her relationship, stating she doesn't believe people are built for monogamy anyway. When Jules asks if they were ever truly good together, Rue quietly admits, honestly, not really. Jules then prepares a bath and invites Rue to join her, which is surprising because Rue thought she was done. Episode 3 finally delivers the disaster everyone's been waiting for, Cassie and Nate's wedding. But before the ceremony, the show dives deeper into Jules' past through flashbacks. A roommate first introduces Jules to the world of sugar dating, framing it as normal dating except you get paid. A montage then follows Jules navigating increasingly strange sugar daddy dates. A lawyer obsessed with licking tights, a wealthy producer who openly admitted to tax fraud, and a finance guy who hooks up with her under the desk during a call. But the most intriguing relationship develops with Ellis, a rich plastic surgeon who becomes disturbingly fascinated by Jules after learning she transitioned at 14. He caresses her skin and marvels at the fact that she's poreless because she skipped male puberty. Eesh. At one point, he wraps her nude body in cellophane like a sculpture and admires her in silence. Jules then eventually drops out of art school as, under Ellis's financial care, she has nothing to worry about. Stupid decision, but anyway. Back at the present, life at the Silver Stripper has escalated far beyond strip club management. Rue is now helping Alamo run an illegal weapons operation out of the back rooms, filing serial numbers off of AR-15s before selling them to criminals. When Rue says she eventually wants to go legitimate, Alamo gives a cynical speech about how every underground economy eventually gets absorbed and taxed by the government anyway. The conversation gets rudely interrupted when the pig Alamo unleashed on Laurie's mansion wanders into the club during a performance by Magic, who's singing in a rhinestone-covered neck brace for some reason. The pig begins running loose and urinating on the dance floor, pushing Alamo over the edge. In front of everyone, he shoots the animal dead, splattering blood across the club. Furious at Laurie, he asks Rue about Laurie's most treasured and valuable possession. Rue mentions that Laurie loves her parrot, and Alamo decides his next target will be Laurie's pet parrot, Paladin. Aw, not the bird. As that happens, the wedding day arrives in its full chaotic glory. Cassie is emotionally unraveling before the ceremony, panicking because Nate never came home the night before. The reason quickly becomes clear. Nate is hiding in a bathroom, violently breathing into a paper bag. Nervousness, which could be either cold feet or the calls from his loan shark. Guests arrive dressed extravagantly, including Jules, as Rue's date, in a barely there icy blue dress, and Maddie in a backless green gown with a fur stole. Why is she there? 'Cause Cassie invited her. The ceremony itself is absurdly extravagant, packed with towering floral displays, giant ice sculptures, and Cassie wearing a designer corset. Cassie's mother tries to make the moment all about herself by whispering to her daughter about how her own wedding was the last happy moment before she realized that her husband was a deadbeat. Despite all the dysfunction surrounding them, once Nate and Cassie say their vows and fiercely make out, they look genuinely happy and truly married. During the chaos, Rue leaves to handle a drug pickup for Alamo at Laurie's house, leaving Jules alone at the reception bar. There, Jules encounters Cal Jacobs. He randomly apologizes for secretly filming her back in high school, explaining that he took a plea deal for sleeping with an underage guy and is now on the sex offender registry. Jules realizes Nate must have destroyed the tape before police ever found it. Soon after, the reception goes south. Loan shark Naz publicly confronts Nate over his debts, while investors from Nate's previous failed housing scheme overhear the argument. Cassie, hearing this, gets scared for her future because she doesn't want to be poor.
Hey, is everything okay? Of course. It's my wedding day.
The investors who lost their kids' college funds in the scheme overhear the drama, and the wife publicly screams at Cassie about it. Meanwhile, Jules and Nate quietly share a cigarette outside, having small talk about the crew from Eastland High and seemingly closing the book on years of trauma a little too neatly. Elsewhere during her drive, Rue receives a surprisingly warm phone call from Fezco, who jokes about escaping prison through parkour. But the mood darkens again when she arrives at Laurie's. While Laurie tries convincing Rue to return to working for her, Bishop, one of Alamo's henchmen, secretly poisons Laurie's parrot, Paladin, with fentanyl-laced water. Back at the wedding, Cassie drunkenly screams at Nate in front of guests, accusing him of failing as a provider before accidentally launching a champagne cork directly into his eye. Okay, that was funny. Somehow, the two reconcile moments later and leave together in a ridiculous Jeep limousine, with Nate promising he will fix their debts and become a better husband and maybe even a better future father. Maddie, meanwhile, quietly returns alone to her tiny apartment, sad because Nate's mom called her the wrong choice in her speech. The episode then ends in full horror. Nate carries Cassie into their mansion after the reception, only for the lights to reveal Naz and his men waiting inside. The goons immediately ambush Nate, beating him to a pulp. Cassie gets hit in the crossfire, and instead of helping her bleeding husband, she just sits on the floor wailing. She is so unintentionally funny, it's not even a joke. Naz's men pin Nate down and cut off his pinky toe as blood spills across the floor. Looking directly at Cassie, Naz coldly tells her that some women inherit wealth, but others inherit debt. Looks like Cassie is the latter. In the final moments of the episode, Rue drives down the highway listening to Bible recordings when the Drug Enforcement Administration, or the DEA, lights suddenly appear behind her car. Back at Laurie's mansion, Paladin takes one final sip of poisoned water and dies, ending the episode on a grim, ominous note. The next episode opens exactly where the last one ended. Rue's sitting in the back of a police car while DEA agents search her vehicle with a drug-sniffing dog. When the dog barks at the trunk, Rue realizes she's screwed. Rue is then dragged into an interrogation room and the DEA lays out overwhelming evidence against her. They know about Laurie, her Mexico connections, and even have photos of her speaking with cartel members. Rue desperately tries to play innocent, but she is an awful liar, I'm afraid. The agents explain she's facing at least 20 years in prison without parole for drug peddling, plus additional decades for every overdose death connected to the trafficking operation. Yikes. Terrified, Rue finally breaks down and agrees to cooperate. She is then given a bleak choice: become an undercover informant or go to federal prison. Naturally, she chooses to become a snitch. Before releasing her, the DEA replaces the drugs in her duffel bag with sugar pills and laxatives, bugs her phone, and installs a tracking software in the form of a number saved as Mom in her contacts. She's told to keep the phone outside of her pocket at crucial times as conversations can be recorded. Back at Silver Slipper, Rue is too panicked to notice much else happening around her, including Alamo's newest dancer, Kitty, from Kansas. Alamo, meanwhile, believes he successfully destroyed Laurie by poisoning her beloved parrot, Paladin, and is celebrating recklessly. Across town, Laurie's crew holds an emotional funeral for the bird and vows revenge against Alamo. Elsewhere, Nate Jacobs sits in his mansion recovering from the brutal beating he suffered after the wedding. His face is stitched up and the doctors have surgically reattached his pinky toe. Nate tries turning the injury into a metaphor for his marriage, insisting broken things can always be repaired.
So the toe is us?
In a way.
Cassie believes otherwise. She's mad at Nate for putting them in that position. As she cleans his wounds, she tells him that nothing truly returns to normal once it's broken, and Nate finally admits he owes nearly $1 million to the loan shark. Hearing this, Cassie packs her bags and leaves him. Cassie then reconnects with Maddie. She leaves her wedding ring behind, a pawn for cash, and throws herself into becoming famous online. Maddie takes over as her unofficial manager, assembling stylists and photographers while reinventing Cassie's image from a suburban bride to Hollywood OnlyFans influencer. Cassie, with the money she got from pawning the ring, moves into the apartment across from Lexi's so she can focus entirely on building her online following. Meanwhile, Lexi tries helping Jules by commissioning her to create artwork for the hit television show LA Nights. The assignment is simple. Paint something inspired by Georges Seurat, a French artist, for a picnic scene. Instead, Jules delivers a wildly inappropriate abstract piece packed with 14 Lexi attempts to defend her artistic vision, but producer Patty furiously points out that the network television cannot air nudity and postpones the shoot. The delay costs the production nearly $200,000, leading Patty to later scold Lexi and warn her to not become a net negative. Humiliated herself, Jules later destroys the painting in frustration. Back at Lexi's apartment, Maddie is helping Cassie shoot erotic content while explaining how much money influencers and adult creators can earn online. Their glamorous atmosphere is then interrupted when Rue suddenly arrives demanding hard drugs, insisting they are for her boss. Looking at the room of chaotic drug-seeking and OnlyFans creator friends, Lexi realizes she's the only adult left in the room.
Like, what is wrong with you people? You're looking for drugs, you're selling your body on your site, and you're like some internet pimp?
Meanwhile, Nate's situation worsens further when he appears before a permit board begging approval for his failing real estate project. When officials reject the proposal because of the presence of endangered flowers on the site, Nate completely loses control, screaming at the board members before collapsing on the floor sobbing. At the same time, Rue's DEA handlers pressure her into arranging a meeting between Alamo and Laurie. Rue insists that the two sides will never reconcile and instead tries subtly questioning Alamo during a poker game about where he plans to get his future drug supply. Her nervous behavior makes Alamo deeply suspicious. He stares at her and says she looks like a rat, though he ultimately convinces himself that she is simply using drugs again. The episode gets darker once Rue notices Angel's locker at the club has already been reassigned after she disappeared from rehab. It belongs to the new girl Kitty now. Soon after, Rue catches Kitty taking mouthwash and asking for a ketamine in the bathroom. When Rue questions whether she is being forced to work at the strip club, Kitty avoids answering and says that she likes to dance. Magic, the dancer from the previous episode, overhears the conversation and immediately warns Big Eddie that Rue cannot be trusted. While Cassie fully embraces Maddie's influencer world, a massive Hollywood mansion party hosted by influencer Brandon Fontaine, Maddie encourages Cassie to manipulate Brandon to take her into his bedroom for publicity. Cassie follows the advice perfectly, dancing on tables, kissing another girl for the cameras, and joining Brandon and Caitlin in Brandon's bedroom for a substance-fueled threesome. Side note, Caitlin is the same girl that Maddie was forced to drop at the beginning. Long story short, Cassie manages to grab Brandon's attention more than Caitlin, since Caitlin starts puking as soon as she takes the drugs. And soon after that, Maddie turns the entire scandal into a viral content moment, walking in while live streaming Cassie alone with Brandon, which skyrockets Cassie's follower count overnight. Back at the Silver Slipper, Big Eddie asks Rue about Magic's accusation against her, and while Rue tries to argue otherwise, she also gets a chance to frame Magic by putting drugs in her locker. Soon after, two very violent men with guns storm Big Eddie's office wearing, hold on, is this right? Barack Obama masks? They then hold Rue and Magic at gunpoint and demand Eddie open the safe. When he refuses, they shoot him in the stomach and threaten worse violence until he finally gives in. As the men escape with the money, Magic reviews the surveillance footage and learns the getaway driver was a woman with enormous lips. Rue immediately realizes it was Faye working for Laurie, officially triggering a full-scale cartel war. Yikes. Episode 5 opens with Cassie Howard fully embracing her influencer career. After Brandon Fontaine tagged her online, she gained 17,000 new subscribers to her OnlyFans account in a single day. Under Maddie's relentless management, Cassie is trapped in a non-stop cycle of content creation, sucking her own toes, whispering names into a mic, and filming small videos. Maddie handles the logistics, mailing out used underwear and even faking a $700 fart in a jar request by performing it herself, rationalizing that fans won't know the difference.
You fart in the jar. He's not gonna know the difference.
Okay.
To boost her brand, Cassie hits the podcast circuit. While Trisha Paytas hosts the show, Cassie spouts unhinged red pill talking points.
You think they're being too restricted by
Yes!
society.
Like, if a man today were to say that he wants a girlfriend that can cook or clean, he might as well be screaming the N-word.
But even with all this freedom, Cassie is funneling $35,000 checks to her fully cucked husband, Nate Jacobs, to help pay his debts. And he is very, very supportive of her career. Cassie's growing fame culminates in a surreal dream sequence where a giant building-sized Cassie bursts out of her cat suit, stomps through downtown Los Angeles, and smashes her massive chest against an office window where a man is pleasuring himself to her content. Cassie feels as though she's finally met her destiny. Meanwhile, Alamo is still furious over the robbery at the Silver Slipper. Big Eddie has taken the blame while recovering in the hospital, but Alamo decides that Big Eddie deserves death for this. After that, we see Rue's life as a DEA informant becoming increasingly dangerous. Alamo calls her in for a private meeting and orders her to draw a map of Laurie's house so he can plan revenge. And after that, we see the DEA finally catching a break when they make Rue call her old colleagues under a bridge in their presence. Rue fails to get Laurie to directly incriminate herself, but Wayne, Faye's racist boyfriend and one of Laurie's trusted dudes, refers to Rue as their drug mule, which gives the DEA enough evidence to move forward. Elsewhere, tensions start brewing between Cassie and Maddie when influencer Brandon Fontaine tries convincing Cassie to leave Maddie's management company and join his content house instead. He also tells her that Maddie is not a real manager. She's just an assistant at a talent agency. Cassie then confronts Maddie about lying to her about her job. She also asks her to meet at her place so she can see where Maddie lives. Cassie is shocked to see Maddie's place and tells Maddie that she might be leaving him for Brandon. But Maddie quickly manipulates the situation, pretending to cancel a fictional audition for LA Nights until a panicked Cassie signs her restrictive contract without reading it.
Okay, I'll sign it.
Maddie then pressures Lexi into securing Cassie a real audition for LA Nights. Everyone expects Cassie to embarrass herself, especially when she awkwardly introduces herself by listing her body measurements and uses her maiden name, Howard instead of Jacobs, to establish that she is Lexi's sister. However, Cassie shocks the producers with a passionate monologue from Shakespeare's Cleopatra. Producer Patty Lance is impressed enough to immediately offer her the role. While Cassie celebrates becoming a future star, Lexi explodes in frustration and calls her the most narcissistic person she has ever met for using her maiden name. Cassie barely notices, though, too distracted by her own rising fame. While that's happening, Rue and Jules attempt to reconnect emotionally. During a quiet daytime conversation, Jules confronts Rue about her fear of intimacy and emotional distance. Rue flirts with Jules a little bit, and it looks like it's going somewhere. However, later that night, we see Jules doing hanky-panky with her wealthy sugar daddy, Ellis. However, the mood shifts when Ellis discovers men's boxers embroidered with Rue's initials on the floor. Of course, he is mad about it. He tells Jules that she shouldn't be bringing guys into this luxurious apartment that he makes her stay in. And also, he is not keen on bringing an STD home to his family. But Jules clarifies that the boxers belong to her female friend, Rue Bennett. Yep, sure, that's all you guys are, friends. Meanwhile, Nate's situation spirals even further. After briefly celebrating another large money transfer from Cassie, he is attacked inside his home again by one of Naz's cartel enforcers. The intruder beats him, tears off his surgically reattached pinky toe, and permanently removes one of his fingers, all while suburban normalcy continues outside his window. Jeez, how many more toes and fingers do you think he's gonna lose by the end of the season? Back at the Silver Slipper, Magic discovers cocaine planted in her locker. Rue totally forgot that she did this. With the drugs in her hand, Magic runs to Alamo and blames Rue for trying to set her up. During the confrontation, she reveals a crucial detail. During the earlier robbery, Rue did not seem to recognize the voices of Laurie's crew. Alamo listens to that, and the suspicion surrounding Rue grows rapidly. Later, Rue has dinner with Maddie. She asks her whether Cassie's repeated betrayals affect her, but Maddie simply says that she has achieved emotional equanimity by removing feelings from her business decisions entirely. Their conversation is then interrupted when Alamo unexpectedly joins them. Maddie openly pitches her vision of becoming rich by managing adult content creators, insisting she sees no moral issues with it. Alamo immediately recognizes the business opportunity and suggests partnering together using dancers from the Silver Slipper. He then leaves Rue behind with his men, while he and Maddie head to the club, where Maddie begins evaluating dancers like products, selecting Kitty and Magic as the first recruits for their new operation. The episode ends in pure horror. Alamo's men drag Rue out of the ranch, force her to dig a hole, and bury her inside that hole up to her neck in the dirt. As the dawn breaks, Rue desperately begs for mercy, but that is not what she gets. Instead, we see Alamo mounting a horse, grabbing a polo mallet, and galloping directly towards her exposed head. This next episode opens with a classic Euphoria flashback explaining Alamo's origins. We get to know the story of his childhood in the 1970s, raised by a glamorous but emotionally cold monster. She introduces young Alamo to Preston, a gentle man badly scarred from a chemical plant accident. Mommy tells Alamo to make sure that Preston likes him. While Alamo is fearful of Preston in the beginning, but slowly he sees that Preston treats him kindly, he even takes a little Alamo to church and gets him all kinds of treats. Later, we see Preston winning a huge huge legal settlement from the chemical scars, and this transforms their lives. The family celebrates with a luxury apartment, expensive jewelry, and beach vacations. They are finally happy, and Preston is about to propose. He even asks for Alamo's blessing. So cute. However, the fantasy collapses when they return home from their vacation to find the apartment emptied out. They had been robbed. Seeing this, Alamo's mother abandons a devastated Preston and takes her son to another apartment, where all of their stolen belongings are waiting with Alamo's mother's actual boyfriend. Damn. Realizing the relationship was a scam from the beginning, young Alamo grabs a gun and silently vows never to let a woman manipulate him again. Back in the present, Rue is still buried up to her neck in the desert, and Alamo threatens to kill her. To save herself, she offers a new plan. She claims Faye was involved in the robbery and says that she can help recover the stolen money by creating a 3D printed copy of Laurie's safe key. Rue then calls Faye and emotionally manipulates her by reminding her of Fezco, eventually convincing her to cooperate in exchange for a cut of the money. Faye, meanwhile, is trapped in a disturbing relationship with Wayne, who has been pressuring her into pregnancy and even tattooed her back with a swastika. Jeez. Soon after, Laurie arrives at Alamo's ranch for a tense meeting. Rue secretly leaves her phone outside so the DEA can listen in. Alamo agrees to transport 80 kilos of fentanyl across the Mexican border using his fake medical company as a cover, though only because Laurie is blackmailing him with documents stolen from his safe. When Alamo questions the morality of distributing fentanyl, Laurie dismisses the deaths as simple economics and that where there is demand, she will supply. Later, Rue meets her DEA handlers under a bridge, where they tell her the evidence is strong enough that she is finally safe from prosecution. Overcome with relief, Rue quietly thanks God. Meanwhile, Maddie continues aggressively building her online empire. She takes Cassie, Kitty, and Magic to the Silver Slipper for an erotic photo shoot, while demanding Alamo give the dancers more freedom to build their internet following. Alamo immediately suspects Maddie is trying to steal his workers, though Bishop subtly reassures him that she is not a threat. After that, we see Rue visiting Jules, and their relationship finally erupts into a brutal argument. Rue insists she wants a normal future and even fantasizes about children as a path towards stability and happiness. Somebody needs to give Rue a reality check. Meanwhile, Jules calls out the fantasy, reminding Rue she's barely sober. Rue retaliates by attacking Jules' relationship with Ellis, accusing her of wasting her life as a wealthy man's toy. The fight becomes deeply personal, and Jules slaps Rue and throws her out before Ellis arrives. Whoa, that must have really hurt. At the same time, Cassie begins filming her first scenes on LA Nights. During an emotional scene about marriage, she unexpectedly abandons the script and launches into a raw monologue about betrayal, humiliation, and her disastrous wedding night. The producers are captivated by the emotional honesty, and Patty Lance immediately recognizes star potential in her performance. Later, Lexi attempts to sabotage Cassie by revealing her adult content background to network executives. Instead of recoiling, Patty becomes fascinated, comparing Cassie's public persona to daring Hollywood actresses of the past. Patty offers Cassie a larger reoccurring role, but only if she deletes her online content account. Desperate for mainstream fame, Cassie agrees and permanently deletes her page, unknowingly violating her contract with Maddie. Side note, I was literally screaming at my TV telling her not to do it, because it's very, very stupid to delete your old job before anything is even finalized. Anyway, Nate's life continues to collapse, and Cassie receives a horrifying package containing Nate's severed finger and a toe, along with a threatening note demanding she answer the phone. Cut to Nate himself at a stalled construction site, spiraling into rage, destroying the endangered flowers before one of Naz's enforcers brutally attacks him again. Elsewhere, while waiting on the 3D printed key to finish, Rue enters a church searching for comfort. Her mother calls her, leading to one of Rue's most emotionally vulnerable moments. Rue breaks down crying, admitting how exhausted she is from surviving addiction, violence, and life on the streets. Her mother reassures her that she's not alone and still deserves love and forgiveness. Back at the club, Rue delivers the finished key to Alamo. Alamo just hands it back to her, saying that since it was her plan, she should see it till the end. Bishop then hands her a dead rat to feed to Alamo's python and tells her a chilling story about the snake once cuddling with its precious owner while secretly sizing her up as prey. He then casually reveals he recently contacted Rue's mother to tell her how well her daughter is doing, making the threat unmistakably clear. The episode then ends with Rue driving alone through the desert listening to Bible tapes. When the cassette accidentally unravels, she nearly crashes head-on into a semi-truck. Shaken, she pulls over and steps into the darkness, where she suddenly witnesses a nearby Joshua tree erupt into flames like a biblical burning bush. The burning bush is a miraculous event in the Bible where Moses encounters God in a burning bush. Staring into the fire, Rue silently closes her eyes as the screen fades out. The 7th episode opens with a look at Ali's backstory. A flashback reveals his past crack cocaine addiction, his infidelity, and the domestic violence that fractured his family. After hitting rock bottom by ending up in a hospital, Ali found a moment of clarity, joined a 12-step program, and dedicated his life to sponsoring other addicts. He made sure to help them through the pandemic, but still couldn't save all of them. And he has tracked his progress by keeping a literal Book of the Dead, a tragic log of names and dates of every sponsee he has lost to a fatal overdose, a grim reminder of how the story always ends. In the present, Alamo initiates his plan to smuggle 80 kilos of Laurie's fentanyl across the Mexican border. He forces a surviving Big Eddie, who now requires a walker and a colostomy bag, to drive the shipment. Jeez. To ensure compliance, Alamo sends a man from Laurie's side as collateral along for the ride. Unbeknownst to the cartel, the DEA has successfully wiretapped the entire operation and monitors the truck's journey in real time. Meanwhile, Rue meets up with Lexi, having witnessed a Joshua tree catch fire. Rue aggressively tries to explain what she saw to her non-believer best friend. She tells her that God reached out to her and that it was a sign.
God set the Joshua tree on fire because he could sense that I was giving up.
So he set an endangered tree on fire just to talk to you?
Rue also ends up confessing that she is acting as a DEA informant caught between Alamo's crew and Laurie's neo-Nazis, while explaining to Lexi that it all seems to be a part of God's plan. Yeah, Rue, I feel like this is gonna come back to bite you in your behind. Lexi doesn't believe her and assumes she is actively using drugs and insults Rue by saying her mother doesn't even talk to her anymore. An enraged Rue then storms out of the apartment telling Lexi that her mom in fact does talk to her. After she storms out, she tries to go to Cassie's apartment, entirely unaware that an assassin is waiting at Cassie's place with a gun pointed at the door. Luckily, Rue knocks a few times and then leaves, so nothing happens. Later, we see Rue turning to Ali for help, also telling him about the DEA. You gotta stop advertising that, Rue. Ali offers her unconditional shelter and protection, begging her to abandon the DEA's dangerous plan to raid Laurie's ranch. But Rue refuses, insisting that she must see the operation through to ensure her family's safety from the cartel. She tells Ali that God promised to lead her to the promised land, which she believes is that specific rural homestead in Texas. Ali grimly notes the biblical irony, reminding her that Moses never actually got to set foot in the promised land himself. Elsewhere, Cassie's mainstream Hollywood dream abruptly shatters. Following a corporate intervention out of the network, showrunner Patty Lance is forced to drop Cassie from LA Nights to avoid the public controversy of casting an active OnlyFans creator. Oh shit. Lexi is thrilled when she is instructed to rewrite the script to kill off her sister's character. Simultaneously, Maddie is fired by her modeling agency for causing the casting scandal regarding Cassie. And to top that off, Maddie also gets to know that Cassie deleted her OnlyFans account. Now Maddie is mad, and she arrives at Cassie's apartment. Maddie loses it and goes off on a whole rampage, reminding Cassie of her place.
You're not gonna blink without permission. Your world is mine, and I'm not your manager. I'm your boss.
Maddie then gets into solution mode and orchestrates a public relations stunt to immediately rebuild Cassie's subscriber base. She leaks a tip to TMZ, setting up a paparazzi stunt dinner between Cassie and her former co-star, Dylan Reed. Cassie brings Dylan back to her apartment, seduces him, and uses his phone to post erotic selfies on his Instagram page. The stunt works and Cassie instantly recovers her followers, but the victory is cut short when Maddie discovers Nate's severed finger sitting in a glass in the kitchen sink. Miles away, a helpless Nate is informed by Naz that his girlfriend might be enjoying her freedom a bit too much before being asked if Nate is actually 6'5", so that they can build a custom coffin. Naz's goons then ambush Cassie in her apartment, knocking her unconscious, binding her limbs, and giving Maddie a strict 72-hour deadline to deliver the $1 million. While Cassie is held captive, Nate is buried alive in the custom-built coffin beneath the construction site of his stalled real estate project. Because why not? As Nate desperately screams for help inside the dark box, a rattlesnake slithers through the designated air hole and bites Nate in the throat. Damn, what a way to go! His life really did peak in high school. Elsewhere, Rue executes her high-stakes gambit to infiltrate Laurie's operation. She intentionally slams her face into the dashboard of the truck to break her own nose, arriving at Laurie's ranch bleeding and claiming that Alamo tried to murder her. Laurie takes her in, but the crew remains deeply suspicious of her story. They force Rue to make a blood pact to kill Alamo herself to prove her loyalty. Desperate to save Cassie, Maddie makes her own deal with the devil. She meets Alamo in his jacuzzi, swallowing her pride to beg for his financial backing. During the conversation, Maddie accidentally lets slip that Rue talked about the DEA with Lexi. Side note, they talked about Rue being unhinged earlier and Lexi let this slip. Anyway, Alamo keeps his composure. He doesn't really react to it. Alamo then agrees to intervene and drives Maddie to the construction lot to confront Naz. Maddie unknowingly walks by Nate's coffin while handing over the bag of money, trading it for Cassie. When Naz discovers Maddie's bag is empty, Alamo draws his weapon and shoots Naz dead. They then dig up the coffin while Alamo coldly reminds Maddie that his protection comes with a heavy price, 20% of all her future career earnings. But when Maddie and Cassie open the coffin, they find Nate already dead from the snake bite. Later that night, Wayne tells Faye that he suspects Rue is a traitor and that she must be killed. Terrified for her friend's life, Faye sneaks into Rue's room at night to warn her. The two girls then creep down to the basement to rob Laurie's safe for themselves. After the 3D printed key fails, Faye steals Wayne's actual keys while he's passed out drunk. Rue successfully opens the safe, but instead of cash or drugs, she finds a horrifying collection of driver's licenses belonging to missing women, including Angel. Realizing there is no money and that Rue has led them to a death trap, a panicked Faye screams Wayne's name to wake the whole household as the screen cuts to black. The finale starts off with Faye's scream echoing through the campground, instantly alerting Wayne, and Rue instantly realizes that she needs to run. Acting fast, Rue grabs a nearby wrench and shatters Wayne's knee before punching Faye right in the face. She then bolts through the underground tunnels with a limping Wayne firing wild gunshots behind her. Rue bursts through the passage into the barn and flees on foot down the road. However, Harley, one of Laurie's men, pursues her on horseback, swinging a lasso and roping her like cattle. He's been dragging Rue's body across the terrain until a sudden sniper shot from G hits Harley, knocking him off his horse. Rue lies motionless until G screams at her to run. She scrambles into the truck with him, and the two speed away, whooping in triumph over their narrow getaway. Meanwhile, Cassie and Maddie are still in shock about Nate's death. They quickly realize that the only people they have in the world are each other.
We'll figure it out together.
After that, Rue delivers the contents of Laurie's stolen safe directly to Alamo. Impressed by her grit, Alamo labels her his Employee of the Year, kisses her head, and grants her a week of vacation. Oh, maybe he isn't that bad. He rewards her with thick stacks of cash, a Coca-Cola, and a bottle of Percocet, painkillers for the pain from the cut on her hand. Rue tells Alamo that she used to love taking these pills when she was using drugs, but Alamo says that taking them for pain is actually okay. South of the border, Big Eddie and Mitch load up an ambulance with fentanyl, which they got across with the excuse that they are taking girls out to get plastic surgery. With this reason, they escort Kitty and another woman recovering from plastic surgery back through the border checkpoint without a hitch, along with the drugs, of course. Meanwhile, at Laurie's ranch, the atmosphere is incredibly tense following Rue's escape. Wayne decides to take some drugs to cope and accidentally uncovers that the drugs were laxatives when he is immediately rushing to the pooper. Faye realized that the DEA was involved in the replacement of the drugs, which she had warned Wayne about. Wayne finally believes Faye's warnings that their supply is fake. Realizing that they've been set up, Wayne and Faye abandon the property on horseback to save their own skins before the fallout hits. Yeah, so they betray Laurie and everyone else in the gang. Moments later, Big Eddie and Mitch arrive at Laurie's just as federal forces close in. Helicopters circle overhead and flashing lights flood the driveway in a massive drug enforcement agency invasion. Refusing to face imprisonment, Laurie climbs to the roof, slips a noose around her neck, and leaps to her death. Inside, a cornered Harley surrenders to the agents. However, the raid yields no drugs, only a dead rat. Because while Mitch was inside the clinic gathering the dancers, Big Eddie had coordinated with Bishop to transfer the entire fentanyl shipment into a secondary ambulance. Bishop then delivers it straight to Alamo. At the same time, we see a stitched-up Rue crashing on Ali's couch, taking some of the Percocet Alamo gave her because of the pain. The next morning, she eats cereal while watching a news broadcast, and what do you know, the news is actually talking about Fez's daring, parkour-style escape from prison. Determined to honor her promise to get Fez when he gets out of prison, Rue prepares to pick him up. Ali warns her that she is being reckless, but Rue reminds him of his own words, rain or shine. As she speeds toward the abandoned drive-thru mart, where Fez used to work, Ali discovers the bottle of Percocet she left behind on his coffee table. Yikes. Back to Rue, she begins experiencing vivid hallucinations of her younger years alongside Jules, Gia, and Fez. Arriving near her neighborhood, she finds the alleyways blocked off by police tape. She ducks underneath evading officers by leaping across rooftops. Suddenly, it feels like a superhero movie. She then slips through her bedroom window and finds her mother, Leslie, crying with a peaceful smile while reading the Bible. Leslie reaches out to hold her. Suddenly, the illusion shatters. The entire sequence, Fez's escape, the rooftop chase, and the reunion with Mom was a subconscious dream. Rue is still on Ali's couch, gasping for air while listening to a Bible app as her body shuts down. When Ali returns to the room, he finds Rue dead from an overdose. A testing kit reveals that the Percocet tablets Alamo gave her were actually pure fentanyl. Heartbroken, Ali calls Leslie with the news and proceeds to write Rue's name in his book of the dead. Man, I can't believe she's gone. Flash forward to months later, a grieving Ali dresses a 12-step meeting. He admits Rue's death caused him to relapse and lose his faith, declaring he is done with traditional meetings. He vows to find a better way to be of service. Soon after, he is seen sawing off the barrel of a shotgun. Let's go. In the wake of the tragedy, the remaining core group desperately attempts to move forward with their lives. A grieving Jewel weeps silently as she paints a portrait of Rue while Sugar Daddy Ellis prepares coffee. Meanwhile, Cassie is drowning in debt because her house is worth less than her mortgage, prompting her to put on her entrepreneurial hat by turning the property into a creator house where she will charge room and board and take a cut of the creator's OnlyFans earnings. She tries to recruit Lexi to write storylines for the talent, leading Lexi to ask if Nate will ever return, which reveals that Cassie and Maddie fabricated a cover story claiming that Nate simply vanished into the night. Their conversation then shifts to Rue leaving her Bible behind, which Lexi has been reading while harboring deep guilt over how she left things with her late friend. Cassie offers some comfort while waving around a dildo, but Lexi ultimately declines the showrunner role for the boarding house and leaves Cassie alone.
I think a smile says a lot about a person.
As soon as Lexi leaves, Cassie starts crying while looking at a picture of her and Nate together. Meanwhile, Bishop drives a reluctant Maddie to the Silver Slipper Club. Alamo is obsessed with her, it seems. While Bishop and Maddie are in the car together, they end up having a moment. Maddie caresses Bishop's poodle, Snowflake, and we see Bishop smiling and happy for the first time.
So you got yourself a girlfriend.
It's a boy.
However, as they get close to the club near Alamo and his audacity, the mood shifts again, and Maddie exclaims that she wishes for more grace in this world. In a back room, Maddie delivers an envelope of Cassie's money to Alamo, the 20% cut he mentioned in the last episode. Alamo then opens up to Maddie about his existential dread and his desires for a conventional American dream, having a white picket fence, a hot wife like Maddie, and some cocoa-colored kids. He says all this while groping Maddie, making her very uncomfortable. What a douchebag. At the same time, the atmosphere in the club shifts when a man in full military dress uniform chains the club's entrance doors shut with a bicycle lock. It's Ali, demanding to see the manager. G steps forward to intimidate him with a handgun, but Ali jams a shotgun into G's lap beneath the table, right for the crotch. Under extreme stress now, G admits Alamo owns the venue and that Rue died from their fentanyl. When G claims ignorance regarding who exactly handed Rue the pills, Ali shoots him in the groin. Chaos erupts, security fires at Ali and misses. Alamo crashes through the mirror, using Maddie as a human shield before tossing her aside to grab his own firearm.
Right up.
Damn this man. Ali and Alamo then face off across the room. When Alamo demands to know who sent him, Ali answers simply, Rue. Alamo then orders Kitty to pass him a champagne bottle, chugging the contents before rolling the empty glass down the bar. The agreement is clear. Both men will draw when the bottle falls off the ledge. But Alamo doesn't play by the rules, and he turns early to shoot Ali in the back. Only his gun doesn't go off. Why? Because Bishop had secretly emptied his gun. Now that's what I like to see. Recognizing the betrayal, Alamo promises to see Bishop in hell just as Ali pumps 2 shotgun blasts into his chest, followed by a 3rd killing shot.
Just in case.
As Ali, the goat, exits, Bishop drops the hidden bullet onto the bloody carpet and offers Maddie a ride home. I'm really shipping these two now. Sometime later, Ali drives down to the border homestead where Rue had stayed during the first episode. He meets the residents, referring to Rue as his departed daughter, and comforting them with the knowledge that she's finally in a better place. The family then invites him in, and Ali breaks down in tears while saying grace before a shared meal. In his mind, he sees a vision of Rue sitting at the far end of the table, smiling warmly and saying amen, and she looks happy and beautiful. The series then closes on a tattered American flag rippling in the evening breeze outside the house as the sun goes down, accompanied by a final voiceover from Rue.
May God bless us all.
Damn, I still can't believe Rue's dead. Do you guys think this is the end, or will Sam Levinson renew it for another season without its main character? Let me know what you thought of the ending of Season 3 of Euphoria in the comments below. And feel free to check out my other videos on the screen to watch some more. Please like, subscribe, and share this video, and do all those other awesome things you people do, and I will see you next time.